Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Hello, and welcome. Today I have on a returning guest, Joran Gray, who was on episode 12, Expression of Source. And with Joran, I feel so safe, so held, and so comforted, and really, really wanted to bring her on because we are in such a pivotal time in this specific era of existence. And Joran is a channel, Joran is a conduit, and wanted to bring her in to share what is on her heart, what has been relevant, and what is coming through from her heart and her soul. So here she is, Joran.
Thank you, Danae. I'm really glad to be back. I had a really good time with you in our last one. It was really fun. A lot of good information that came through. You know, as you said, I am a channel and things just come through straight from source. So I really hope that it helped whoever needed to hear it at that time. And you are right on. We are in such pivotal times. There is so much information that has been coming through to share with you guys today. Should we just get started? Just go right into it? Okay.
Let's do it.
So I first want to talk about ascension and what's happening in the whole grand scheme of things. So this word gets thrown around a lot, and some people know it's happening, some people understand it, and some people don't. So just a quick little recap to what's happening is that our planet and the people are literally rising up in frequency. They're going from a lower vibration to a higher vibration. Now, in order for the entire planet and Earth to actually rise, all of her people need to be able to rise as well, right? So it's so pivotal that we as the people, right? Like we are her cells as our cells are to our body. So it's important that we do our healing work. It's important that we clear our trauma, that we step into our power, which is really just all of our light. That's what it means to step into your power. It's your ability to hold and carry your light, which is love, right? So it's to be able to hold this huge amount of love energy within your space, within your frequency field, your giant bubble, which extends way beyond your physical body, to be able to have that radiate at the highest frequency that you can physically handle, and then to be able to connect with others at that frequency. And then that creates this beautiful flower of life, divine matrix that permeates through the entire world, creating this beautiful bubble around the earth. And then when that time comes, that's when she gets to rise up into what some people say 5D, could go higher. I honestly don't know. It doesn't matter what terms we use. It just matters what's happening and that we understand the concept of ascension. And so, if you think about it, if we're able to clear trauma at such a quick rate, we might be able to help with her ascension. Maybe we can spearhead her from 5D to 70 or 5D to 60 or 5D to 90. I believe there's 12 dimensions for anyone who's curious or interested. I've heard some people will say 12, some people will say 18, some people will say 7. It really depends on what you study, what you research. When it comes to this kind of stuff, it's really hard to quantify, right? Because this is beyond the physical body. We don't have words for this stuff yet. I think we're going to be creating words over the next hundreds of years for what we're talking about today. But right now we're all kind of figuring out how to say what we're trying to say, what's coming through. So keep that in mind whenever you're studying anything of a higher frequency, of a higher dimension. We're still in the process of creating the words and creating the tools for this new dimension and this new frequency. So that's kind of a good little start around the ascension process and dimensions. I'm curious, Danae, if you have any questions about anything before I move forward with what's currently happening at this specific time.
Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, I would love for you to I have an idea of the concept, but I would love for you to share a little bit more about dimensions.
Okay.
So that folks who are not familiar with that concept and with those theories to just have a little bit more information so that they can do more research, but also lean into the information that you have to share.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll go ahead and bring up what I know about dimensions. So I am a multidimensional healer. I am a newly multidimensional healer. I've been doing healing for quite some time, but stepping into the multidimensional aspect is new for me. So I am still learning myself and perfecting my skill and understanding the dimensions. But for example, I'll explain a little bit about what I do know. So every single person has 7 layers of energy that surround them. And they extend from what I've seen from right around your body, kind of like when someone would say, I see your aura, or if you've ever stared at someone and you see this like glowing light around them, you're starting to tune into their dimensions, okay? It's an energy field that surrounds you. And so, just like the chakras in their 7, it's the same with your energy field. And so there's these multiple dimensions that surround you. And you can kind of think of them as parallel universes where there's so many things existing at the same time. And so this is where it gets a little tricky, right? Because it's kind of hard to understand that concept of your past happening at the exact same time as your future happening at the exact same time as this happening. And that just takes time to really understand. I fully myself have not fully understood that, but I'm starting to grasp that concept because I've had experiences very recently where I'm sitting here doing something like this, and all of a sudden I'm remembering this moment from when I was 12 or when I was 5, and it felt like it just happened, and I'm getting a complete flashback. And in this experience, I recognized like that just happened. It wasn't 20, 30 years ago. I literally just experienced that. And so what I think's happening is that the dimensions are all kind of starting to fuse together. So you know how I talked about how they're separated by 7? I think they're kind of starting to fuse together. So you know how people talk about timelines collapsing, timelines coming together. I know they're all concepts that can be hard to understand, but just bear with me. I believe that all of the parallel universes and parallel realities that are happening are starting to become one fluid reality, or are starting to crumble, okay? Because these could all be realities that have been manifested, realities that have been created for specific purposes, right? In order to control society or to control outcomes and future events, right? Because the people that are very knowledgeable, the people that are running, the world and the countries, they know how to work within these realms. So I believe that they're going in and playing around with dimensions and playing around with outcomes and timelines. But then I think because the light is winning and we're ascending, then the light beings are coming in and breaking down those structures and breaking down those timelines so that we can come through and start to break through this fake matrix system to create the divine matrix system, the true matrix system, right? The natural earth grid template that was designed to be. And kind of bringing it all back full circle, that is what is happening with ascension. We are stepping into our natural template, not this fake matrixy template that was built in order to control and to limit us. So you'll notice people who are really doing the work and really stepping into clearing their wounds and stepping into their power, you're going to start to notice that you're also breaking down structures of belief systems that don't serve you anymore. And I think those belief systems are related to this fake matrix system that tries to keep us on a lower frequency, on a lower vibration. And so the more that we clear these old wounds from our bodies, because they're imprinted in our cells, I believe that these have been carried through so many thousands of years of generational trauma that they're imprinted in our body and in our cells. And so that's why we have to go in and really attack these old program systems from within the cells, which you can do with either a trained healer or just bringing like pure source light and love frequency into the cells and starting to feel and see every single cell burst open and all the old programming leaving and being sucked up and consumed by pure source light, which you can imagine like a beautiful sun. And then you can start going back into your pure infinite potential of that cell. So starting to visualize and imagine that cell with its big bright light just exploding and being in its full potential. And you can do this with your cells. You can do this with your chakras. You can do this with your organs. If you have any illness in any of those areas, this is a technique you can try to start doing to reverse any illness or negative energy that's stuck in their body. So for a long answer for what are dimensions, I think that that's a good start. And just know that each dimension carries its own coding. So you have a lot of trauma that's unconscious is within that first layer, right? You can't really see it. You don't know it's there. It's like when you have a breakthrough and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea I was still carrying that. That's all in your first dimension. Then you move up in step second, you're still in those physical realms where it's still related to your trauma. Third as well, that's more of your power center. It's very much like your chakras. Once you hit the fourth dimension, you're talking ethereal, right? And that's where entities can kind of come in. But then once you hit fifth dimension, that's where you start to go into that state of oneness where entities can't really come and get you from. And you're really in this beautiful frequency. And it's like, I literally see it as you with your face up in the sky, your head up in the sky, and your feet all the way down, deeply connected to earth. So it's this massive dimensional frequency. And so they just keep going up and up. And once you get to 7, you're just oneness. It's just this giant source frequency, and there's nothing, no form, no separation. So that's what I mean by dimensions and timelines collapsing. And so I think that's where we're heading. And it's kind of segueing into what's happening right now, if that's okay, Danae.
Of course.
What we're talking about this ascension process, and I follow along very, very accurately to what's going on with solar flares, solar activity. It's kind of like my thing. Because what will happen is I'll be in bed and all of a sudden out of nowhere, I'll feel like, oh my God, I'm like all of a sudden like anxiety is creeping up or some kind of trauma out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, there has to be some kind of solar flare that's hitting us right now. So I go and check. Sure enough, boom, something's coming in, right? I always like to check with the Schumann resonance. That's where you can see when a lot of activity is coming in. And there's a lot of really great information on Telegram and some great chats that you can find the solar activity information on as well. And so this past couple of weeks we've had so much solar activity. I mean, I'm talking solar tsunamis. We had a proton storm last week. We had multiple CMEs, which are coronal mass ejections, which are the preface to a solar flare. So the energy gets emitted from the sun. You can see it as like a blast of, gas, blast of energy. It gets emitted from the sun. That's the CME. Then that creates a solar flare from there. So creates that energy emitting from there. And then that either explodes out into the solar system or it enters our Earth, depending on where it was blasted from and where our Earth is. And so it's been rampant. It's acted up for the past 6 months. It's been really extreme, and it's just going to keep going more and more. Everyone's saying till about the end of 2024. So what happens during this period? Think about this for a second. Okay. The sun represents pure source energy. Okay. It's the everything that is. It is the highest frequency of everything that is. Okay. So when you get a solar flare, what's happening is that pure source is emitting from the sun, that energy. And then it's coming, and let's say it hits our Earth, that our whole Earth is getting flooded with pure source frequency. Okay. And how this can look is different for everyone. So either you can have a very traumatic incident start to surface, because if it's dark, it can't stay in your body, right? If it's dark and the light shines on it, then that darkness is ready to be transformed. It's showing you your trauma so you can transform it, okay? Now, let's say that you've worked through a lot of trauma, and at that time, there's really not a lot of layers, even though we always have layers. But at that time, you've got a really nice balanced system coming out. So when that solar flare hits you, what it's going to do is it's going to inspire. It's going to activate that inner light with you. And then it's going to make you more inspired. It's going to create all these wonderful new ideas and create opportunities in your energy field. And that can change. When a solar flare hits, it can change from 1 hour to the next, depending on the intensity and on what's going on within your body system. And I just kind of remembered as I was talking about that I believe that I discussed this at the last podcast. So if I did, excuse me. But I did want to give a brief little description of that because I think it's really important to understand what's happening. So we have all these solar activity that's been happening the past 2 weeks, and it's been so intense that the people that I communicate with and check in with are also noticing it too. And, we're healers. We carry very high frequencies. And so we usually feel these things more than earlier than most people do. And so I love to check in with these people when I start to feel it, because I'm like, are you feeling this too? And I get my confirmation. Okay, this isn't just about me. This is all of us, right? And so that's a really good way for me to know, is this about the collective or is this something that's happening for me? And there's many people out there that you guys might be like this too. You might be having experiences where you're really tuned in and you're really sensitive, and you're always welcome to kind of find your community and start asking people, hey, are you feeling a little off today? Because hey, there's a solar flare, and you can start to kind of do your own research and start to understand what's going on. And it's very helpful for people too. I've helped a lot of people and clients and friends that will tell me like, what is going on today? And then I'll do my research. I'll be like, well, we just had this massive solar flare. And they're like, oh, so good to know. Just brings that relief and that comfort that something's just happening. Let it just process through, right? It's not like this huge trauma that might be trying to come out that's directly correlated to you. So we've had all this solar activity, which means we're ascending quicker. Okay. We're raising our vibrations because we're clearing out all this trauma and we're going higher and higher and higher. And so I've noticed that we are in the midst. So when Danae is going to put this podcast out, it's going to be about 3 to 4 weeks after that her and I are actually talking right now. So for everyone listening, think back to about 3 to 4 weeks ago, because this is where I'm talking from right now. So you'll notice that at that time, which was also the same time around the spring equinox, because this was recorded on March 22nd. So this is 2 days after the equinox. And then we also had the new moon in Aries yesterday. Okay. So we have multiple energies supporting this rebirth, this transformation, this purging of the old that doesn't serve us. And also we have this Pluto going into Aquarius tomorrow, the 23rd, which for you guys will have been like a month ago almost, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth and transformation. So you literally have huge aspects pulling you in for this rebirth process right now. That came immediately after a heavy 2-week period of solar activity. The solar activity has died down. It was every day for 2 weeks, nonstop flooding in, so intense. And think about that for a second. It's almost like you're working so hard, you're accelerating. And then now it's like the purging is happening, right? It's taken a break so that we can all simmer down, process, let everything integrate and clear out. And then imagine where you're going to be in a couple weeks from now. So for the people watching, where you're starting to come out of, right? When you clear out the darkness, you're going to hold room for more light. So where you guys are going to be at, you're going to be holding your light to such a degree, you're going to be in that movement mode. It's going to be like, go, go, go. You're going to be getting the opportunities, the awarenesses. Pluto's already going to have been in Aquarius for a few weeks. So you're going to have a nice, strong, solid basis starting to find itself. You're going to have the equinox already settling in. New moon's going to be from Aries, going to be switching to Taurus, right? Which, think about that for a second. So we had this new moon in Aries, which is like presenting yourself to the world. Like, here I am, brand new. It's like a baby stepping out into the world. So what did you just let go of, right? What about 4 weeks ago when this video is created right now, what did you let go of? What part of you were you ready to say goodbye to? And what are you creating from that? What is this new fresh skin, this new energy? What is coming out into the world now? Okay. This part of you is starting to manifest. And if you're going into a new moon in Taurus, which new moon is new beginnings, right? So what Taurus is about material, it's about possession. It's about appreciating the finer things, the material things, right? Which is okay to do with balance and with grace, right? And so how are you now materializing this new part of you? This is where we're at, right? Where you guys are going to be at right now when you listen to this audio. And I think that that's a really good understanding and awareness of what's been happening in this transition. Now, I also want to bring to light that I see the new year, while we do celebrate on January 1st, which surprisingly is correlated because I don't know if you guys know this, the Egyptians follow the goddess. It's either the god or the goddess that was from the star system Sirius. That's what the whole, because it's the birth of that god or goddess. That's what the whole January 1st New Year's is all about. However, I see the New Year's, the real New Year's, as March 20th or March 21st, whenever the equinox is, right? Do you agree?
Same. Yeah. Same. Right there with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it just makes sense to me. It's spring. You're coming out of winter, your darkest moments, all the time that you reflect and let go and purging. And then you're coming into this beautiful life where everything blooms and comes to life. It feels right symbolically for us to be coming into a new year during spring. And then Aries season as well. The first sign of the zodiac, right, is when the sun moves into Aries, is also on the same day as the equinox. So it's the first sign of the zodiac. So to me, it makes more sense. Although I think we have a collective experience around New Year's being on the first, and that's why it's so powerful. So it's just as meaningful, but I'm trying to invite you and encourage you to bring that energy into this March 20th energy, because you have the real foundation and structure of our earth and her template on your side as well, right? Not just the energy of the January 1st, the collective consciousness. Now you have actual earth consciousness that's on your side as well. So with that being said, where are you in your rebirth? You're probably a month into it. Take some time if you haven't yet. What have you let go of? What are you stepping into? And then there's two other aspects I want to talk about. One is, I brought up the Pluto going into Aquarius. So Pluto going into Aquarius. Pluto is the planet of death, destruction, transformation. It spends roughly 20 years in each sign. Pluto has not been in Aquarius since 1778. Do you guys remember what was going on in 1778? The American Revolution. Okay? Think about that. Anyone who knows Aquarius loves their independence. Aquarius loves their freedom. Aquarius is about social equality. Aquarius is about serving the water bearer. He's walking. He's got this big, vase of water on his back. He's bringing water for people. That's the symbol of the Aquarius, right? So Pluto, the planet of transformation, death, rebirth, destruction, in order to create new, is stepping into this sign of revolution, of independence, of equality, of freedom, of invention, technologies, doing things new, but for humanity, for the collective. And so with that being said, I'm getting the chills. The next 20 years is going to be this massive transformation where we came from. Oh, my light just went off. So sorry if that changed. We went from, in 2008 was when Pluto went into Capricorn, which is what we're coming out of. Anyone who knows Capricorn is very structured. Capricorn likes government is Capricorn. You can think of structure, rules, right? So death and destruction around government, around rules and structure. I think we're all kind of at a point where we're tired of the structure. Like, we're tired of this foundation that has been built, and it doesn't serve us anymore. It's an outdated system. And I think we all feel that. And I think that's now crumbled within our consciousness and within our collective psyche. And now we're going into this beautiful Pluto in Aquarius revolutionary period where we really get to step in this massive transformation around freedom and social equality. And so, I keep getting the chills. And so I know, same. Yeah. That's the channeling. That's how you know when you're channeling, right? And so that's where I'm really excited to see what happens as someone who has devoted my practice to helping in this ascension process for our planet and her people and humanity. This is like this is going to be the making, the make works, the big work of what we're doing. This is the grit. Like, we're going to figure it all out. We're going to come together. It might take a few years. It's going to be rocky for a few years while we're still adjusting and figuring out how to come together, but we will come together. And everything will harmonize, as long as it's in balance. You always have negatives and positives of a sign. And the one thing that came through as I was talking right now is that I can see, because Aquarius also represents technology, I can see almost this huge pull towards technology, almost to a degree that takes us away from Earth and from ourselves. And so I'm hoping that with the right consciousness and with the right energy and frequencies, we don't let it go down to that extreme. We bring that back up into harmonizing with Earth and not going too far into that AI technology. That's just my opinion, at least. But aside from that, I'm really, really excited. And then, so for you guys, again, that's March 23rd. Now, what I want to say is, this is going to be kind of a wild couple of years here. So we have from March to June 9th, I believe, you have the Pluto going into Aquarius. Then from June 9th to January of 2024, Pluto is going to be in Capricorn, okay? Because it's going to retrograde. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing, okay? So it's bitter because it's going to take us back to where we were and where we just came out of. But it's sweet because it's going to, we're going to be able to see how we're shifting from an older perspective combined with a new perspective all at once, right? So we get to kind of look at it from the future and from the past at the same time. And that's a very reflective state to be in. And it's kind of reminds me of like the dark night of the soul. That's when the real beauty is made and created. And that's when you can really see everything for what it is and create what needs to happen. So we have this, I think it's about a 7-month period, where you're going back into Capricorn. And then I have it here. Let me read where that was. So then from January of 2024 to September of 2024, you will be back. Pluto will be back in Aquarius again, right? So she's coming back forward, coming out of retrograde. So we get to come back forward again, and then we get to create from that space all the things we learned during those 7 months where it went back into Capricorn. And then we're going to try new techniques. We're going to try new things again. And then Pluto's retrograding again one more time back into Capricorn. So we get to refine, we get to relook, we get to reflect and see what's not working, what's old school that we need to continue to transform. And that's going to be happening from September 2024 until November 2024. So it won't be too long, only a couple months that time. And then once November 2024 hits, Pluto will be in Aquarius for the next about 18 years. That's until 2044. And then Pluto goes into Pisces, which will be phenomenally amazing. I mean, I see huge, huge things for that, like way beyond even my wildest imaginations. I think that's going to be an absolutely incredible time where everyone's coming into their spirituality and their wholeness in the most fantastic way. I see telepathy. I see people communicating beyond the physical realm when we get to that. So 2044, guys, we could get there. You got 20 years, So one last astrological aspect is that Saturn just went into Pisces, right? So for anyone who studies astrology, we just had the Saturn going into Pisces about a month or two ago. I can't remember exactly when. Time goes so fast, and this is a very, very beautiful placement too, because Saturn, it represents structure. So technically Saturn rules Capricorn. So everything I explained to you about what Capricorn represents, structure, government, rules, all that stuff, that is Saturn. And so Saturn going into Pisces is not very harmonious for Saturn. Okay, Saturn doesn't really like this very much. Pisces is fluid, flowy, open. It's all 12 signs of the zodiac. It's like love, peace, spirituality. It's beyond this dimension. It's everything. Okay. And so Saturn, who likes its rules and its structure, is going into this fluidy, flowy place. And it's like, whoa, what is happening here? And this is another one of those, I believe it's 16-year cycles. I'm talking the big ones here that we're dealing with, all within this like month period, right? And so a couple things about the Saturn going into Pisces is that Saturn represents your karma. So if you've been doing all the work, right? If you've been doing it these past couple years, you're going to get the rewards during this period. Okay. This is a really powerful period. For all the work that you've been doing, you're going to get your karmic rewards. So if you've been doing all the work and all of a sudden you're at your point where you're like, I'm tired. I've been working so hard. Okay. Trust me, over the course of this year, Saturn's going to start giving you your, coins. You're going to start having coins falling all over you. You're going to have your opportunities. You're going to have your abundance. You're going to have all the things you were manifesting, your seeds growing and manifesting into full creation. And I want to say it's coming through right now. I said Capricorn or Saturn goes in every 16 years. I could be wrong by that. Now that I'm thinking about it, but in fact, as I'm thinking about it, I think it's only like a few years. So I apologize for that. I'll have to double check that. But what's interesting is that back to Saturn going into Pisces is that this also is creating new structure because Saturn was in Aquarius and Saturn was in Capricorn. Yeah. So I think it's about 2-3 years because it recently just came out of Aquarius and Capricorn, which was like a 5-6 year period. And so what they're doing is so Saturn just came out of this structure, this routine, this non-flow, and then it's going into this total flow space where it's just expansive and it's finding itself as the whole, as the collective, as oneness. So talk about a revolution. I mean, big things are about to start happening. Big changes are about to start happening. And I think we're going to start seeing, hopefully new government systems being created through these next 20 years with this Pluto in Aquarius system. And so that is all I have to say about the astrology. And again, double look up that Saturn because now I'm going all over the place from like 2 to 8 years. So I'll have to double check that. But for your own knowledge and awareness, double check that. I apologize for not knowing that. But yeah, so that's the information about what is currently happening right now. And the best thing you can do is to just keep going forward. Even in those moments when you have the darkness, when you have the exhaustion and all the things that are coming in, there's no turning back. And I think once we learn to accept this, that there's no turning back, you have to work on yourself. Then you can start stepping into your full power. Because let me tell you, it might be hard at first. And that time frame of how hard it's going to be at first, it might be a while. I'm talking, it might be a couple years. But you're going to reach a point, and you're going to notice it along the way, where you're so in your power. You're so full of love. You start to see the hidden messages. You start to connect with people you never even knew you could have friendships and relationships with, that were out there waiting for you, right? The world, the universe, spirit, source is going to gift you rewards each and every time you heal, each and every time you break through and purge and do what's the best for your heart and your soul and for source. Every single time, I promise you that. Just keep going. And then one day, you will have arrived and you will be in a place so beautiful, so synchronistic. I'm not saying it doesn't have its darkness. It has its darkness, but your ability to bounce back will be so much quicker. Instead of spending a week, 2 weeks in darkness, you might be just spend a day or two, or maybe even 5 hours. It might shift within a day, right? And that's what happens when we really heal and we really own our power and we step into love and we let love lead and guide us and love flow through us. So I am excited for what is happening. We are reaching the next stage of ascension, and I feel it and I see it, and I am excited. And it doesn't matter what happens out there and on the news and all the other things, because remember, a lot of this stuff with the news is trying to distract us, right? It's trying to keep us in our darkness and our fear, because that stops you from creating more of yourself, from stepping into wholeness, from stepping into love. So if you're someone who watches the news, any kind of news, alternative and regularly, I want to invite you to maybe step away from it. Maybe do like a 3-week no news and see how your world changes. I think you'll notice a huge difference, because I'm telling you, we are ascending, and they know it. That's why they're pushing the dark stuff harder. So we got to go harder into our light. right? That's how we're going to come back. That's how we're going to rise. We can combat evil and darkness through light and love. It's really that easy. I'm not saying it's all light and love. You're going to go to the darkness. You're going to find and see everything in that darkness. And instead of pushing it away and pretending it doesn't exist and saying, I'm not going to look at you, you're going to look at that darkness for what it is. You're going to grab the darkness. You're going to embrace it. Oh, I'm about to get tears. You're going to look at it right in the eyes and say, hey, it's okay. I know what you've been through. I know what you've done. And I still love you and I still accept you wholeheartedly for everything you are and everything you have done. So come back to me. Don't hide, right? Don't hide anywhere in my body. Don't hide the trauma. Come out, surface, be who you are. You know, something I experience in my healing sessions, literally what I do is help someone find where they closed themselves off, right? Because what happens is when we experience trauma, what do we do usually? Maybe at the beginning of our phase, right? When we're like, we don't have the tools to heal. We go, oh, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to let that happen again. So you start to change a part of yourself. You close off an aspect of yourself, right? In order to never have that experience again, because you don't want to feel pain. It's a survival mode. It's a survival method, okay? But if you, instead of what you're doing when that happens is you're closing off your power, your wholeness. There's a part of you that's waiting inside of you, sleeping, hiding, scared to be who it is. And sometimes we can't even see that thing is hiding inside of us, right? And Danae, I think this is a good segue into what we've been kind of talking about, right? Do you want to kind of go ahead and start sharing this?
I would love to. I would love to. And I would also really love to share a little bit about the experience that I had working with you because of how profound it was. I've been doing so much inner work for the past, really on and off for the last 10 years, but really diligently for the last 3.5 years, really, really deep inner work, almost every single day dedicating to my evolve. And sometimes it's been to my own demise. I think that there's been, since we met, since we were able to step into that space of healing, there was an opportunity that was provided to me to let go and let the universe and let God and let source be the conduit. Let me be the vessel, let source be the conduit, and allow myself to get out of my own way and to let the healing happen because it already is happening. It's already been happening. And oftentimes, I think consciously, we have the tendency, I think that's the subconscious. I think that's the dark part of the consciousness. The mind, the egoic mind wants to control. And we lose sight of the wisdom and the actual discernment of what spirit is looking to do for us. And you really helped me with that. Along with your practice, I was doing some body work with a dear friend who was on the podcast doing TRE. Within the same week, I worked with you and I worked with her. And that was just fully transformative. It just shot me off into this space of falling into what we were talking about earlier, what I would love to talk about now, finding what no longer aligns, transmuting that energy because that energy is still there, accepting it, loving it, looking at it in the face, looking at our anger, seeing our rage because we have it. Even though we're women, we have it and it's okay and it's healthy to have it, but to love it and to understand it and to feel it. It allows us to realign with what is meant for us. And I would love for you to share about your process because I know you have gone through a rebirthing process in that space of realigning where you're going.
Absolutely. Well, I love everything you said, and I know that that's really hard, and I'm really glad to hear that that helped you so much and that you had extra support during this process and that you were really attacking this trauma from, multiple layers here: body, mind, soul, energy. I mean, I think that's really, really vital when we're doing this kind of work, is some people will come in for sessions and they expect just this one time boom and all of a sudden you're healed, but it really takes a lot of work, body, mind, and soul, all aspects coming together and continuously working at it from all angles. Right. So I love that you were doing that. So the process of what I've been going through with my rebirth. So something that I struggle with and that I have struggled with, it's not my reality anymore, is, I am a very young healer. Okay. Now, granted, I started healing at 13. I started working with a healer at 13, and I saw her every month for 13 years. So you can imagine at 13 how well-versed I understood energy and frequencies and how to use frequencies and colors to heal. My healer used a lot of color therapy, and mantras and energy to shift any negative outcomes, which I've incorporated into my practice today. Not negative outcomes, negative energy within my system, negative beliefs. And so, I deal with every now and then, people that just don't really think I am where I am, just because they take one look at me and assume that, I'm not as powerful or not as healed, or, I don't do the level of work that I do. And I went through a period where it just never bothered me. And then all of a sudden, about 6 months ago, I started getting little encounters where it started to trigger me. And then it just started accelerating, and I started to get more and more. And, because when you're very practiced and attuned and evolved, your abilities heighten. So I can be very, intuitive. I can be very psychic, and so I can feel people's thoughts. And it's also an empath skill. I can feel what someone's feeling towards me when they present to me. So I recognize, for the most part, right away when someone's already making an assumption or maybe getting triggered because they want to be where I am. And so then, sometimes when you get triggered by someone, you want to make them less than to make yourself feel better about the whole circumstance. And so that was just a lot of energy that I've been going through for the past 6 months. And I work with a mentor, the most amazing mentor in the world. Her name's Barbara Buck, and I absolutely love her. She's in Oregon, and she's helped me get to the level that I get to in such a quick experience. I've only been working with her for 2 years, and I swear I went from a level like 5 to 8 within like 3 months of working with her. She's just that amazing. But anyways, so we've been working on some stuff, and I finally was able to get to the root of it. And I think I'm going to bring it up because I think that this is, this is sacred to me. So please take this with heart and compassion and grace for me. But I think it's important to understand how healing works. So I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you to be able to reflect on your own experiences and learn within yourself why you might be having some triggers, whatever those triggers are for you. So I would get triggered and I wouldn't understand it, right? And I would just be like, oh, why don't they see me? Why are they judging me? Or why this? Why that? Why this? And then finally, it hit me one day. And I was like, really, I shouldn't care if someone thinks of me that way because I know who I am, right? Right? That would be where I would want to have been, in that space. It's just like, oh, they don't see me. That's fine. Whatever. It's their loss. If they don't want to work with me, fine, fine. And so, but I wasn't able to get there. And why? Because I had a wound from my childhood that I wasn't seen, that I wasn't heard, that I wasn't felt, right? And so that wound, I didn't even know that I had that wound. For someone who's been doing healing for 22 years, and then that wound came up, I know what happened was that it was like the onion. The root of it was not being seen, not being heard to this degree, but I kept peeling down the layers, and it took me, 10 years, I would say, of really working on it to find that root layer. And so I found that initial memory. I found how I've been keeping this aspect of Jordan hiding down in my stomach and in my heart, afraid to speak her truth, afraid to come out and be who she is. Because if I did, someone might judge me, right? Or someone might criticize me. And, that's something I've carried for a long time. And so what happened is that I started dimming myself, right? So I'm someone who has done more work than honestly anyone I know except my mentor. Okay. Anyone I've ever met, because that's how much I work on myself. Right. And so I wasn't even giving credit and honor to all the work, not even to me, but to the work, to the aspect of Jordan that sits in her bed for hours upon hours, getting to the root and the core of that issue, healing it, loving it, transforming it. Right. And so I was like, it just clicked. I was like, enough is enough. I am done dimming myself down because it makes someone else uncomfortable that I stand in my power. Because I know that I am all love. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to be in their light. And I hold space for everyone, every single moment in my life. I do. And so if someone comes at me with a little bit of a trigger, now what I'm trying to do is, instead of getting triggered and being like, why don't they see me? And why don't they, recognize me? And why are they trying to knock me down a peg? Instead of going to there, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lower myself. I'm going to own myself. I'm going to stand into my power, into my energy field. I'm going to breathe in love into my body and acceptance. And then I'm just going to respond from that space instead of getting triggered, right? And so that's something that I'm currently now in the process of rebirthing. And these are all just the steps of, now that I've stepped into more of a leadership position, I have to start owning that space more and stepping into that space. And that's going to help my students and my clients and myself as I keep progressing upwards. And the biggest takeaway, though, is I see so many of us, we do this, and this is an empath wound. So when you feel someone else's pain, as part of being an empath, right? What we're doing, it's so interesting. What we're doing is we're stopping that pain from coming back to us by minimizing our light, right? Because if we know that that person's going to get triggered because you're an empath, we will dim ourselves down so that we don't have to feel that person get uncomfortable. Right? We're not going to feel that person get uncomfortable. So then it's like a self-protection mechanism that we do for ourselves. Right. And, it's funny. I really want to be honest with you. My mentor is the one who brought that to light to me, a couple weeks ago. I just want to make sure I honor her because that's all her. But, now that I see it, I'm very clear with it. And so recognizing that this is an empath wound. And if anyone out there finds yourselves having similar wounds, just recognize that what's happening is you're an empath and you're feeling someone's energy. And the best thing that I could say about that is to start creating this frequency of power and saying to yourself, it's okay for me to be in my fullest power now. It's okay for me to shine bright and hold space for someone else to shine bright too. We can shine together. And sometimes someone who might get triggered by you, instead of you getting triggered and going into this, why, the wound, if you can hold that light and that power and energetically hold space for that person to not be triggered and to come back with that frequency, you might just be an instant shift for that person, right? And maybe they will feel more comfortable to not have to come at you. Right? Maybe their wound can start to get healed too.
I think that does help liberate that. I definitely think that helps liberate that. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing vulnerable parts of yourself with us.
Yeah, it's important. And yeah, welcome.
Jordan, thank you so much. That hearing you share that part of yourself and knowing that you've done this work for so long and that experience came to you as an opportunity to stand more in your fullness is exciting. I'm excited for you. I'm so that invigorates me for you to own your light more, to own your truth more and to embody what it is you came here to embody.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I love that you said it's an opportunity. And I think that that's a crucial aspect of when you're doing this kind of work and you're doing the healing work. When you have a moment of darkness, instead of being like, I can't believe this is happening to me, this always happens to me, and going into that side of life, looking at it as an opportunity to find the wound. It's literally what's happening. You're given an opportunity and you can run from it. And if you run from it, it's just going to keep happening until you find it, because your body doesn't want that wound. So it's going to keep creating situations for you to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a really good point.
And especially when, yeah. And I think also you saying that it was, we talked about this earlier, but I think it's important. I think that it's important to bring up that as empaths, as people who are doing the work, people that are doing the work tend to be mirrors for others. Mm-hmm. And when people like you or I or anyone else who's on this journey doing this work are mirrors, things that are reflected back to us are the discomforts. And that's what you mentioned. So those discomforts, it's important to not carry them and make them our own, because they're not our own. When we take things personally, that's when we run into some issues. It's not about us when we're feeling those things. Can you share a little bit about what you can do to not take things personally when you're going through that process of being a mirror and feeling those feelings? Because I think the tendency of like shame or guilt can come up in our bodies and in our fields because we're feeling it from someone else, but rather what would it look like to not take that on as a part of our own consciousness and understanding that it's from another? Can you just share what that would potentially look like as a practice?
Absolutely. So it's a 2-step process from how I would handle it. The first step would be programming your energy field every morning. So whatever work you're doing. So let's say you do like just like a basic like chakra cleanse and ground into earth. I guess that's not very basic, but if you do something where you're grounding into earth and you're just kind of starting your day. So first and foremost, that's the most important thing to do. Every single morning, we should all be grounding into our space, grounding deep into the earth's core. And there's many exercises on YouTube that will teach you how to do this. And you're always welcome to reach out to me through email and I'll send you some information if you're ever interested, because it's so important. I want to share this material, but ground into earth. Then from there, if you feel like you're ready for something like this, you could go into every chakra and just kind of breathe into it, open it up and say, my chakra is open, cleared, balanced, and protected. You go through each chakra. Then I personally like to go up and allow source light to kind of come through and then just fill my whole body with this beautiful golden source light. So from there, you'll find yourself feeling really nice and protected and balanced and whole. Then it's about ownership, right? It's about saying, I claim all of my space. My heart is my heart. And literally it's a visual thing. It's an imaginative thing that you want to start playing with, where you can feel every energy in your body fusing together into this wholeness, because that's what it is. All healing is wholeness. The word heal comes from this word called hail. It's like H-A-E-L. That means whole. Okay. So when we heal, we're making whole. So what we want to do is we want to fuse our body into this one whole solid energy field. We want to program the energy field to be in your fullest potential, your fullest power. You can use words like queen, like I am the queen of my space. I am the queen of my energy field. Or this is my energy field. I am whole. I am full. It is all Jordan, right? And the thing you want to do when you're saying these things is you want to feel and imagine your energy permeating and spreading through you and out of you, right? So that's the first step. You got to prep yourself. And I notice if you do this every morning, it's fantastic. And I've noticed if you go into a situation, or if I've gone into a situation where I didn't do this practice, that's where I have holes in my energy field, and someone can come in with their little tentacle of wound and trigger me, right? So this is kind of like a protective, preventative practice. Now, let's say you still picked up on someone's energy field somehow, right? Maybe you didn't do this whole thing and you picked up on some energy. So then when you get done, when you get home, send it all out of you. Imagine all of that person leaving out of you through like a ray of light up to source sun above, or some people like to go down to earth below and just let her cleanse you, sending it all away. You want to imagine and visualize as much of that person's energy going into source, okay, and leaving you. And then when you get to the end, like you can kind of pull it out and send it. And then you call all aspects of you back together. So for me, I would say all aspects of Jordan come back in, fill me up, and imagine it swirling around like all of the Jordans from my childhood, from now, from my future Jordans, all coming together and creating this beautiful, holistic me. And that's a really great way to bring your energy back into you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of folks are probably experiencing this because of the time that we're in, especially with the equinox, the energetic new year. And I think it's so important to reiterate that this, as much as we focus on the Gregorian calendar, we have to remember where our ancestors came from. We have to remember that they were honoring the rhythms of the earth and they were watching the sun as their guide. And that was the return of a new year. That was the return of a new cycle. And just like that, we now have an opportunity to step into this new cycle, the cycle that you were sharing about earlier with the astrological changes that we're embarking upon. And utilizing these practices is imperative, whether it be this practice or another, but keeping ourselves grounded is imperative to move forward. As Jordan mentioned earlier, doing your due diligence to go into the shadow, to investigate, and to bring it back to the light, because there's things that are wanting to be shifted in this consciousness, in this realm of existence. And I think it's important that we honor that for the earth that's been our home. Right? Absolutely.
I completely agree with that. It's a beautiful recap to the whole podcast today.
I want you to give us anything else that feels imperative, that feels potent, that's permeating through your spirit, that needs to come through. Would love for you to just share that.
So I have a really, really good friend in the Seattle area who's an amazing person, an amazing healer. And he came and visited us for the spring equinox. And he has this incredible Lemurian seed quartz. And so I wanted to show you guys, because he left it with me and he's like, you need this for a little bit. Just bring it back to me when you're done. Because that's how amazing he is. I'm not going to lie. I don't think I could ever leave like one of my babies with someone. So that says a lot about him. But can you just check out this Lemurian seed quartz? It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And it's funny because as I'm talking about her, I'm already getting the information because I was going to tune in, but it's already coming through. So this is a Lemurian seed, right? Lemurian seed quartz. So anyone who doesn't know about this rock, this crystal, it's one of a rarer quartz that's found over in like the Brazil area. And it technically is encoded with the energy of the ancient land of Lemuria, meaning Lemuria used to be this beautiful civilization on an island with these gorgeous blue turquoise waters, and every single person and animal and plant in Lemuria lived in harmony. They lived in peace and in harmony with one another. And the land got destroyed through some believe to be like a comet type of experience. And the Lemurians knew that this was going to happen because they were so evolved and advanced. They were a very advanced ancient civilization. And so they coded their information and sent it off into the galaxy, okay? And they sent it off all into the different parts of the world. And it is said that these crystals carry the ancient codes of Lemuria. And so I'm going to tune in for a minute and I'm going to ask this quartz what it wants to say for you guys, okay? And I have to tell you, my wonderful friend who's like my soul brother or my cosmic brother, he asked me to help name it. And I just instantly was like, Mama, it's Mama. Like, she's nurturing, she's powerful, she's loving, she's supportive. And so I wanted to share that because I feel like that's going to be a prominent theme for the energy she's going to be giving out to us. So give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. Interesting. So what was said, it was so quick. And what came through was that peace on earth is achievable and that you are the ones responsible for the peace on earth. It all starts and ends with you, and that they are all cheering for us, cheering for you, waiting for you to rise up into your glory, to recognize how powerful you are, and to help create this incredible new world that is not far beyond our reach. It really is right here. We just have to get enough people to believe it and start creating it. So whoever hears this and whoever's contemplating starting that journey of healing, this is your wake-up call. This is your confirmation that it is time, and to just start going forward. If you have no idea where to go, start anywhere. There's such a big community of people. It might feel weird. It might seem woo-woo at first, but you know what? Step out of the comfort, because why do you think so many people are stepping into this? Because there's something about it. Okay. There's something happening here. Thank you, Mama. I love her.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you. It's so good. I love that it came through. Just start somewhere. And I'm sure that that's a little bit from you and a little bit from Mama. And I think it's important to start somewhere. And I know that Jordan and I can both say the alternative to not starting is dis-ease. Dis-ease, disease, that is a manifestation that takes place in the body. And that's not a threat. That's not me trying to scare you, but from someone who was not honoring their truth and feeling the dis-ease within her body, I encourage you to do the thing. It's worth it. It's never a bad time to start. And I promise you, while healing is difficult, it's fucking worth it. It is fucking worth it. Life is so beautiful. It's so beautiful and available to us all to feel that cosmic connection of pleasure and ecstasy within our daily lives. It is possible. I tell you.
Absolutely. And something that came through to remind as well is that I know there's a stigma out there, and people who may feel weird about doing this kind of work and, oh, so-and-so is going to judge me and so-and-so is going to think this. You don't have to tell anyone what you're doing, you know? And the funny thing is, when you start doing it and you recognize how real it is, when you start to find yourself, your real self again, and you recognize that this is the work that it took for you to get there, and that there is something to this, it's not going to matter anymore. You're going to start promoting it because you know how much of a difference it made in your world. I've never met someone who started the spiritual journey that stopped. Never. That jumped right off. Never once. Okay? So there's something to it. That's a good success rate, right?
I'd say so. Thank you so much, Jordan. It's always a pleasure and a privilege. And I can't wait to continue to have you on for these conversations of channeled source, channeled energy, and your divine light being a voice of reason and comfort and love and support for us all. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your words and your acknowledgement and recognition of my soul, and for letting me be on here and have this space to help and to express my truth with complete love and safety. I mean, you're very representative of love and safety for me as well. So very honored as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jordan. I love you. And I can't wait for our next chat.
Me too. Me too. I love you too.
Yeah.
And we'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon. Bye, dear one.
Bye.
Hey there. It's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too. So if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.